What if I told you Santa Claus was on his way to your house, old Saint Nick wiggling down your chimney to deliver to you the thing you've always wanted? But en route, on his way to your residence, he was gunned down, murdered in cold blood, and your dream gift stolen. That's exactly what I'm telling you. It literally happened. A Bloodborne remake was taken from us. In early 2025, it's reported that Bluepoint pitched a Bloodborne remake. They were pregnant with Bloodborne, and then they were punched in the stomach, killing it before it ever even had a chance. This news just broke in light of Bluepoint's closure. It's been announced that Bluepoint is shutting down, which is an absolute fucking shame because I thought they were making bangers. They most notably made the Demon's Souls remake, which I thought was incredible. I recently replayed it, and I think it's an amazing game. And they also made the Shadow of the Colossus remake. And now they have been put in the dirt. The reason for their shutdown is because Sony seemingly lost faith in them. They thought they couldn't make their own game, didn't have the gall for it, and they just couldn't find a partnership that made sense. Which I think is a fascinating take, considering this is the same company that was more than willing to queef out hundreds of millions of dollars shoveled into Concord, of all things. So you're telling me they believed more in Concord, the live service hero farter, than Bluepoint, with a proven track record of making good remakes, and having the facilities to make good games? Super confusing, especially when you consider Bluepoint was one of the few studios that was actually able to put out a high-quality game exclusive to the PlayStation 5 that made it enticing for people to even want to purchase the console in the first place. For me, Demon's Souls Remake was a system seller, and there are very few games that PlayStation 5 even really had throughout its run here. PlayStation 5 is going to finish this console generation with less games on it than the fucking Shrek 2 DVD had in its main menu. So, one of the few studios that proved that it was able to actually make a good game, now no longer exists. In all fairness, I will admit that the title Bluepoint was cooking for the last X amount of years sounded fucking abominable. It sounds like such a bad joke. It was a live service God of War spin-off adventure. Oh, God. So that was a really bad project for Bluepoint to be undertaking. It was canceled by PlayStation in January of 2025, which is then right after when Bluepoint pitched the Bloodborne remake. And I will say that a live service God of War game sounds like a Sony decision that they tasked Bluepoint with. It sounds like something that they took and said, Bluepoint, you're doing this. I don't think that was Bluepoint's main goal. I don't think they were salivating to create a live service God of War experience. I can't imagine Bluepoint was crawling on hands and knees, groveling and kissing the feet of Sony, begging them to allow them to make a live service God of War spin-off game. That just seems like a Sony corporate zombie decision, and Sony publicly stated numerous times that one of their main focuses was live service experiences. So this really does seem like an idea, cooked up in the laboratory of Sony, and it's the exact same brain-dead approach that led to the foul, smelly Concord that only breathed for about 2 weeks. An embarrassing 2-week blunder. So this feels like it was a Sony decision, and then after the disaster of Concord, they probably wanted to pump the brakes a bit, so then they canceled the God of War live service game that they put with Bluepoint. And then when Bloodborne Remake pitch didn't make it across the finish line, then they didn't have a whole lot that they were working on, so they shut them down here a year later. And I also thought when reading this headline that it was Sony that poo-pooed on the idea because Sony basically just says Bloodborne is our property to sit on and do nothing with, but it turns out that's not the case. So according to Bloomberg, Bluepoint was told that the numbers made sense to remake Bloodborne, but FromSoft didn't want it to happen. So it wasn't Sony that put the kibosh on it or anything. It was actually FromSoft. Former PlayStation executive Shuhei Yoshida theorized during a Kinda Funny interview last year that FromSoft president Miyazaki, who directed Bloodborne, was interested in remaking the 2015 action game himself, but was too busy to do so. Yoshida said he doesn't want anyone else to touch it. And if that's true, he believes PlayStation will respect Miyazaki's wishes even though PlayStation owns the IP. Now I understand, and I think most people have understood, that Bloodborne is a very special title for Miyazaki and FromSoft, but I think most people have also heard about how much they've wanted to do with Bloodborne, and multiple times in the past they've reiterated that that's not their decision to make. So the impression was, for the last decade, Sony was the one predominantly making the decision to keep Bloodborne in the toy box under lock and key, letting the dust gather. And that they were just squatting on it, either because they didn't believe that it was, a powerhouse of an IP that they actually want to do something with, or whatever. But it seems like there also is the case of FromSoft just not wanting anyone else to work on it, but they themselves are too busy to do so. Which is understandable, but they did allow Bluepoint to remake Demon's Souls. So then I got wondering, well, were they just disappointed with how they handled that remake? Like, maybe they thought that shit was poop and they didn't enjoy it, they weren't a fan, so they didn't want Bluepoint to touch Bloodborne, which is an extremely special title to them. So I went looking for some old interviews, and the most I can find is this. It's an Edge magazine interview with Miyazaki talking about Demon's Souls remake, and one of the things that was a big topic was how impressive visually Demon's Souls remake looked, talking about the graphical fidelity, and Miyazaki even said that actually added pressure to them with Elden Ring, because Bluepoint's Demon's Souls remake looked so good. And when talking about the remake, it's mostly positive. Now, of course, obviously he's not going to come out and be like, oh man, that's the worst thing I've ever played in my life or anything. But what I read here sounds like someone that actually does appreciate the work that went into it. So he was asked about, what's it like to experience the re-release of a game you originally worked on over a decade ago but had no direct involvement in. And he said, point blank, I haven't played it, but it's because I don't enjoy playing games I've made in the past, brings up a lot of old emotions, memories, and gets a little bit overwhelming. So he hasn't played it, but then he says that he's very glad to see it get this fresh look, these brand new current-gen graphics. He then goes on to praise some of the decisions they made, even outside of the visuals, with their mechanics. He goes on to give a lot of flowers to how Bluepoint handled Demon's Souls remake. So it seems like he and FromSoft were pleased with how they approached that one, though there are also rumors out there that behind the scenes they were really disappointed. Trust me, bro, they were fucking fuming at the FromSoft headquarters with Bluepoint's Demon's Souls remake. It was insulting. They were actually about to march over there with sledgehammers and beat them to death because of how much they hated it. But I can't find any official sources that confirm that. That's all just rumors and speculation. What I can find, however, is them just openly saying yeah, it was actually really impressive what they did. It doesn't seem like there's any animosity. It doesn't seem like they hated that or anything. But when Bluepoint pitched the idea for a Bloodborne remake, I guess they weren't interested there because Bloodborne means too much to them, and it's something I guess they directly want to be involved with, which they wouldn't be if Bluepoint took it over, because with Demon's Souls remake, they weren't involved with that. And I guess Bloodborne just means way too much for them to want to do that. So even though they can't work on it themselves right now, that also means that they just don't want anyone to work on a video game for Bloodborne in general, if it's not them. Which, I can understand, it makes sense. However, that also means 11 years of no Bloodborne anything. This motherfucker is still 30 FPS. This bitch is still 30 FPS. There's no remake, no PC port, no nothing, no movement, no schmovement on Bloodborne for 11 years for something that is one of the most beloved titles in PlayStation's catalog these days. It's up there with some of the greats, and it's only one game right now. And I speculate it will be one game for many, many moons to come. I personally don't foresee any new Bloodborne games coming, right around the corner anytime soon. Maybe, deeper into the future, we might see a Bloodborne 2 or Bloodborne port, but I don't think it's anytime soon. Anyway, just wanted to yap about this. I keep my finger on the pulse of anything Bloodborne related. Fingers crossed that one day we'll see more from this. It's one of the best games ever made. It's such a fucking shame that we still don't have more from it. Anyway, though, that's really about it. See ya. Every day we inch closer and closer to the bleak future where nobody owns anything. Even the idea of ownership is looking like a foreign concept of a long forgotten age, as every corporate vampire zombie husk worm person is scrambling to try and shove this idea down your throat that you will be happier owning nothing. You will own nothing and be happy. I know I've yapped about this a lot over the last 2 or 3 years, but that's because it's been accelerating at such an alarming pace. Look at this newest development here. You can now lease a PlayStation 5. Zoinks! Certified turbo zoinks moment if I've ever seen one. This is all fart, no poop. This shit is fucking foul. You have a plethora of really enticing options here to choose from €10 a month up to 17 depending on the model and I guess the duration of the lease. This is fucking outlandish. This is some hogwash. I cannot believe that we are just seeing this now just out in the open, out in the wild, unashamedly. Now, I was reading through things and it seems like 36-month contract is what you would sign for this agreement here, and you don't ever own it. It doesn't seem like you pay for X amount of time, X amount of dollars, in this case like 10 clams, until eventually you pay it off and it's yours. That doesn't seem to happen. I don't know this company, but I was looking into them and it seems like they do this for a lot of tech, and what happens is when you're done with the contract, you send it back. So you end up just paying significantly more over time. It also doesn't even make a mention of PS Plus being included, so presumably, if you want to have the PS Plus service, which I imagine most people would want if they're buying a console in the first place, you're then paying even more on top of that over a long period of time and never actually even own the motherfucker in the first place. And then they just ask you to, send it back politely. What an incredible deal if you've been hit in the head with a sledgehammer, I suppose. But I think a lot of people might just see, oh, as low as 10 a month. Jiminy Christmas, that's a great deal. That's very cheap. That's better than just, saving up and buying it. And I haven't seen too many people defending it, but I have seen a few brainless goob-soomers that are always latching on to terrible fucking business practices and defending them as if it's their fucking job to do so, fighting PR battles for these billion-dollar megacorps for no reason, no gain, aside from just being treated like a fleshlight by these companies. So there definitely has been some chirping here from these addicts that must consume the goob at all times, no matter what, so they're defending this to a certain extent, but most people are rightfully pushing back on this, calling out how outrageous it is. It's a bunch of horseradish. This is not good. And it's a symptom of the direction most of the world is going, where the weasels at the top of the food chain are trying to get you comfy with the idea that you don't own shit. You will own nothing and be happy. You don't question it. Just endlessly subscribe. Rent, lease, subscribe. You have nothing. Just suckling on their teat forever. And the beauty in the case of the PS5 here, once you're done suckling, you've had your fill of milk, you have to spit it all back up. You no longer even get to keep the console you've been paying for 36 fucking months. You have to send it back. And imagine that you're late on sending it back, by the way, and fucking Raylo sicks the Pinkertons on you to repo your PS5 from the lease. It's so ridiculous, man. And the fact that there's anyone that thinks that this is a good idea really shocks me. I understand that renting consoles, renting TVs, renting from all kinds of different places has been a thing for a while, and a variety of different things. It's just that now every company is up in your face and just blatantly obvious about their new push to get everyone comfortable switching to the lease everything model, you will own nothing and be happy model. And in the case of Raylo, with the very limited research I've done on them, it seems like they primarily target low-income households. And in the case of the PlayStation 5, it seems like the goal is to get these families spending money that they ordinarily wouldn't be on a PlayStation 5. A low-income household probably isn't super gung-ho and comfortable dropping hundreds of dollars on a PlayStation 5. But Raylo having an offering as low as 10 doubloons a month Well, now all of a sudden, maybe that family does start spending, and they're spending it on something that they ordinarily wouldn't be purchasing, and Raylo's getting a piece of that pie now. So Raylo's getting paid $10 a month from this family, and at the end of the 36-month contract, that family is paid pretty close to what the normal retail cost is for the device, except now they have nothing to show for it because they have to send the device back to Raylo, who then gets to repeat this process, rinse and repeat. Meanwhile, the family that is now paid $10 a month over the course of this contract gets fucking squat. It's a terrible deal. And it's a smart business move from Raylo because what they are doing is they are incentivizing the low-income households that they're, what I believe, targeting on purpose to start spending on things that ordinarily they wouldn't be purchasing, and Raylo gets to facilitate that and make money off of that. And then that family gets nothing. They end up with nothing. They're just out a bunch of money over the course of those months. And now another thing I saw a lot of people bringing up, I guess is part of like a strategy, is like, you know, you rent the PlayStation 5 right before GTA 6 drops, and you only rent it for like a month at $10 and then cancel the lease there and send it back. So you get to play through the game that you're interested in on a PlayStation 5 for $10. I don't know if that's permissible by the Raylo contract. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. It seems like you can cancel it at any time, so I'm guessing it is. So I guess if you're someone that wants to just play a PlayStation 5 for like a day, a month, 2 months, 3 months, and then instantly cancel it, so I guess in that case you do end up saving a lot of money if you're someone who only wants to play the PlayStation 5 for a very brief period of time. You could do that strategy if it's allowed in their contract. I don't know if it is or not. Maybe they'll get the Pinkertons back on the horn for you or something. Couldn't tell you. But I feel like the norm with consoles is you get a console under the idea that you will own it long term because presumably there's more games coming out over time that you might have an interest in. Thus, you would need the console to play them. So it'd be pretty silly to keep renting the PlayStation 5 every time a new game comes out. Then it would end up costing you money in the long term. But if you're someone that just wants to play a PlayStation for like a month or two, then I guess that strategy would make sense. I just don't think that's the typical procedure. Most people, when they move to get a console, they're probably looking to have it very long term and actually own it, which this does not allow you to do. I'm not just going to regurgitate everything I've said across countless videos now about this whole subscription-based economy and this whole you will own nothing and be happy territory we've entered across the board. I think as it's beaten time and time again by these corporations, people will just come to accept it, and something like leasing a PlayStation 5 will no longer be like a weird, wacky, wild thing that's outrageous. People will just accept it as totally standard business practice. Like, cause think, not too long ago, Klarna was advertising how you can put fucking burritos on Klarna. You can lease burritos, and now you can lease your goddamn PlayStation 5, soon to be everything else in your life. The idea of ownership dying. Not just dying, being murdered, executed in cold blood, defiled, the corpse being dragged through the streets, paraded, mutilated, and taking the place of ownership becomes the idea, imagination of having something that's yours when it's not and never will be. And I shudder to picture that future where you're the weirdo for not wanting to lease your fucking Five Guys burger. People will look at you like some kind of circus freak because you want to actually like own something. Get a load of this guy. This geriatric fossil tried to buy a PlayStation 7 instead of just putting it on fucking Klarna. And this push that the whole world has made to everything going subscription-based and like lease instead of own, rent instead of buy, it's trash. Which is why I've become such like a big advocate for the consumer rights wiki. This is something that I've only recently become aware of, but this seems like a truly valuable service, which is just a platform that solely aims to educate consumers on anti-consumer practices that are being integrated into products. Seems like a very simple mission to just give you as much information as possible about what a lot of these shady companies are doing with their services and their products. So I really do appreciate what's been going on over there. I'll put a link to it in the description if anyone's curious about it or want to check anything out there. This is not like a sponsored segment or anything. I want to make that clear. I have just talked about this a lot and only recently had this put on my radar as something that's aiming to help in the fight against this, you will own nothing and be happy future. So I've been all for it, and just something I wanted to mention here. It is not sponsored or anything like that. Anyway, just another video yapping about this topic. I hope people continue to reject the notion of you will own nothing and be happy. It should not be something that people are just okay with. Anyway, that's really about it. So yeah. It's been 2 years. I'm finally blowing the lid on this. I can no longer keep my lips sealed shut on it. You can only keep the genie in the lamp for so long before someone comes along and rubs him out. I posted a video 2 years ago called I Just Lost a Major Partnership. In this video, I was pretty upset and whining and crying like a baby whose mother denied him a titty about the fact that a partnership that I had been working on for a long time and was very excited about had recently just been blown up by them for the silliest reason imaginable. Actual dream partnership. It's a company that I literally have grown up with my whole life and have always wanted to work with in a big capacity, and finally we had a big thing in the works. And I never named that company. I tiptoed around it, treated it like Voldemort's name, but today I am going to name that company. It was PlayStation. We had a huge deal in the works with PlayStation to do a lot with them, with Dead Space and Final Fantasy. And then I released the music video Filthy. It's a song from Troy and I of The Gentle Men, and it's a joke song that's just over the top, gross, and yucky, and the corporate suits over there at the Sony Games division were left aghast at this music video, shocked. They reacted to it the same way people used to react to Two Girls, One Cup or One Guy, One Jar. They fucking flew back in their chair, hand over their mouth, gasping, and they then canceled all of our partnerships, not only with Dead Space and Final Fantasy, but every future deal was now off the table. And over the course of 2 years, I assumed that they'd come to their senses and realize how fucking stupid that is, all just because of this music video that most people probably don't even remember. And it's not even that bad. It's just, overly sexual to a, ridiculous degree as a satirical take on, it's not even that big of a deal. I'm not in there just spamming slurs or anything. I don't fucking show my whole asshole and flop my meat around, fire hosing the camera or anything. It's not a big deal. It's really not. I will say, some of the lines, some of the bars, fire. Some of the most well-written, thought-provoking pieces of lyricism that have ever come out. Putting the pen to the paper for some of these lines, the paper was catching on fire. Especially those first couple of lines. That is the whole reason we learned to read and write in the first place. That was the apotheosis of written words. The shit I spit is grimy, I make her pussy slimy, I know she got a boyfriend but that bitch will never find me, remind me what's on my mind, see, this girl's got me screaming like a hemorrhoid in my hiney. That's Shakespearean. Come the fuck on. They're Eminem, Kendrick, all of the top tier lyricists that you see on those top 10 lists, they could never. They couldn't. They shan't. Yet I did. And got punished in a big way for it by PlayStation. It's been 2 fucking years and I'm still blacklisted. We almost had another deal go through with a PlayStation property. That one I won't name, but we almost had another one go through, and at the last possible stage of that deal, Sony PlayStation came in and smited it. They said you cannot work with them. Am I on crazy pills? Am I the only one that this is extremely ridiculous to? It was a song 2 years ago, and they hated it so much that now they got my fucking face on a dartboard at the Sony HQ throwing darts at it. They hate me there for it now. I wasn't shit-talking PlayStation property in the song. It wasn't even bad. I don't get it. I really don't get it. But it's still, to this day, has prevented them from ever wanting to work with me in any capacity. And it sucks because, as I mentioned in that last video, this is a company who's got a lot of property that I'm a huge fan of. A lot of games and a lot of things that spin off of the games, like shows and shit. A lot of stuff they have under their umbrella that I am a big fan of and would love to, work with them in some capacity, but I cannot at all. They refuse. I am like a pariah at the Sony headquarters over there. All because of a completely unrelated music video 2 years ago. Now, I know you're probably asking, how do I know it's the music video specifically? They fucking told us! They literally told us why. Because we were actually only 2 or 3 days away from doing a Dead Space thing, a big Dead Space partnership. And then I dropped the music video, and the day after that came out, we got the notice that it was all completely canned. And when Matt was talking to them about hey, what happened, they just told us why. They said it was because of the music video. They weren't shy about it. Like, we're not speculating that that's why. They fucking told us that that's why. Like, maybe the person that we were communicating with over there really hated that music video and he, like, sabotaged this internally because he didn't like it, and maybe, like, the Sony Games division has no idea. I don't know, but maybe that's just me with the fucking tinfoil condom on with the conspiracies. I don't know. All I know for sure is that we were told the reason that we will never be allowed to work with PlayStation ever is because of that music video. I think it's silly. Like, the songs, like, that's the sex anthem. That song, Filthy, it invented sex too. And they're gonna disrespect Troy and I like that? Showing no respect to the gentlemen? What kind of world are we living in, huh? I decided to finally let the cat out of the bag on this because it's just so clear now that they're never going to work with me in any capacity. So what's the point in bottling this in? It's such a silly story, I wanted to share it in more detail. Because when I first talked about it, I had to talk around it because I was hoping that maybe the relationship between us would be mended and repaired over time. But that day I just don't believe will ever come. Not even the book from It Takes Two could bring this relationship back together in a healthy manner. Oh, also, I definitely want to put this in here. It's not directly PlayStation themselves here, but the butterfly effect that kind of spanned from it. So after the relationship with PlayStation folded like fucking origami, after they put the kibosh on us, well, our longest running partnership with a company, G Fuel, we were with G Fuel at the time, we had been with them for years at this point. Well, the head of G Fuel comes to us after all this, and it was around the time where our contract was set to auto-renew, and he wanted to have this big call. And he came to us and he said, look, we know about Filthy. Okay, and it's not the Manhattan Project, it's not some kind of secret experiment, you know, it's a music video that is still on my channel. And then he goes on about, like, we know about Filthy, and we know what it's done. We know about the lost partnerships because of it, and we also recognize we're taking a huge risk keeping you on board. And this douchebag went on and on for a little while, eventually getting to the point where he brings up the contract, saying, like, you know, your contract is coming up, and to account for the risk we're taking, we're going to need to make some big alterations here. And the changes were, make it significantly worse, make it complete dog shit. Turn that contract into a piece of toilet paper, basically, where it was everything in G Fuel's favor. Like, they get the whole kit and caboodle, and all of our, like, previous terms basically meant nothing. All because he was trying to now use the Filthy music video and lost PlayStation partnership as leverage in his contract negotiation with us to fuck me in the face. Just preposterous, really. I have no doubt he never even watched the music video or anything like that. The song was not even, like, super popular, so it's not like a huge risk. It's not like everyone was talking about Filthy, like, wow, this song is, this is some bad stuff. Like, you know, let's just say Filthy did get so much popularity to the level of, like, Party in the USA or something. Like, if it was to that level of popularity, I still don't think there would have been any fucking brand risk issue. Like I don't think, like, there's ever anything in that song or music video to warrant PlayStation getting all bent out of shape about it and fucking blacklisting me for it, or G Fuel trying to use that as leverage in a contract negotiation because it's such a huge risk for them. Like, it's just so absurd, all from, like, one quick joke music video and song. So yeah, I really wanted to share this in detail since it's been 2 years now, and it's very clear that I will probably forever remain blacklisted at the PlayStation HQ. Also, I've well moved on from G Fuel. Gamer Supps is significantly better. Goof Juice is the best beverage this world has ever constructed. It is the perfect elixir. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about the legacy of the Filthy music video and everything that happened from it. That's about it. See ya. This morning when I got up, a buddy of mine gave me a late Christmas gift. Santa Claus must have forgot this one in the bag, but he sent it to me. It was a clip from Madam Web, a clip that I had already scrubbed from my memory. It's where she's edging a Pepsi can for like 5 scenes in a row. So she's like fidgeting with it, she's caressing it, fondling it, playing with the tab on it, and never actually opens it. And this goes on for like 2.5 minutes or something like that, where many scenes back to back to back, she just has this Pepsi can and she's just like she's doing a fucking secret handshake with it. Narratively, the reason she's doing that is because she wanted a beer. So the natural human reaction to not getting a beer and getting a Pepsi instead is to then start groping your Pepsi can for 2.5 minutes like an absolute lunatic. And it reminded me not only of how horrible Madame Web is, but also how we got to this point, with Sony Pictures CEO Tony Vinciquerra just being a delusional imbecile. A few days ago, he came out to publicly defend and deflect for the Sony lack of Spider-Man Spider-Verse, where they produced these films for Spider-Man villains that took them and made them into basically what ChatGPT thinks heroes are. And these films have not been received well. It's been flopping more than when I take my cock out of my shorts to tinkle. It has been nothing but embarrassing movies that they have produced. And Tony Vinciquerra can't wrap his head around why they're not performing well. And it just showcases that the leadership at these massive companies is so out of touch that it's sickening. The reason they're not performing well should be obvious. Because the movies are bad, and it's things nobody wants. Even conceptually, this formula that they tried to cook up here is just dog shit. It's a recipe nobody wants to eat. You're taking Spider-Man villains, hold the Spider-Man, and turning them into heroes. Not even anti-heroes, but in the lamest possible way, like CW-level hero slop. It makes no sense. I don't know who it's for. Out of all of the Sony lack of Spider-Man Spider-Verse, the only ones that have at least done decently in the box office are the Venom films. And it's not like they're amazing movies, but they're significantly more entertaining than the others that they've pumped out. The Morbius, the Craven, the Madame Web, all that. Like, Venom has worked to a certain extent because it's at least silly fun. At bare minimum. The others are a tedious chore to sit through. It's more stimulating to listen to a lecture on ATP in an anatomy and physiology course than it is to go see a Sony lack of Spider-Man Spider-Verse film. And Tony Vinciquerra is just deflecting. He can't understand why they're not doing well because he doesn't think they're terrible movies, and he blames the press for it. Highlighting the box office disasters this year for them with Madame Web and Kraven the Hunter. Kraven the Hunter in particular has underperformed beyond your wildest possible expectations of what underperforming could even look like. Whatever you thought was possible for dog shit in the box office, Kraven the Hunter has exceeded. And Tony, he knows that. He described Kraven as the worst launch that Sony has had since starting its Marvel franchise. And then also added, so that didn't work out very well, which I still don't understand because the film is not a bad film. Tony, come back to reality, man. Not only is it a bad film, but no one wanted to see it in the first place because it is a company that has a reputation for pumping out bad movies in this genre. And it's also a movie about a Spider-Man villain that doesn't have Spider-Man in it, so why are people going to go watch the villain be the hero? It doesn't... Who is this for, Tony? It's not for you because you're not watching it. I know you haven't seen this movie, Tony. Don't you ever lie to me again. Don't you ever tell fibs. Liars go to hell, Tony. So stop it. Cut it out. You haven't seen this movie, because if you did, you would know exactly why it hasn't done well. It's a bad movie. It also didn't help that the director of Kraven had to come out and publicly beg people to give the movie a chance. That is so sad, like begging people to show up to your birthday party. The director's saying people have got to give us a chance and come out and support this film and literally try to wash away some of the other stuff that's happened. Give our film a chance. Even acknowledging shortcomings in this fucking lack of Spider-Man verse. And anyone who was suckered into this by the director pulling on their heartstrings, well, you know what they got rewarded with? A bad movie! Kraven sucks! It's not good. Anyone who went to see it wasted their money and time with seeing it. It's better than Madame Web, though, but that's the lowest possible bar you could ever set for something. And Tony actually had some very interesting words about Madame Web. Madame Web underperformed in the theaters because the press just crucified it. It was not a bad film and it did great on Netflix. For some reason, the press decided that they didn't want us making these films out of Kraven and Madame Web and the critics just destroyed them. Tony, Madame Web is a pile of shit with fart on top. I don't expect him to come out here and be like, look, we know this is trash. We know the movie's trash. I don't expect him to do that. But he can at least have some
dignity here and throw away the delusion for a second and be like, oh, these movies underperformed and we need to take a step back and understand that maybe we weren't delivering the quality that fans would expect from these properties. Like, that's a classy way of handling it, as opposed to just saying, it's all the press's fault. The press, for some reason, just had it really out for Madame Web and Craven. We created masterpieces, but the press, they crucified it. No, man. People with eyes crucified it. It sucks. You didn't watch Madame Web. I know you didn't watch it, Tony. Because if you did, you would know what everybody who was subjected to this torture knows. It's boring, and it is a movie where, like, actually nothing happens. It's terrible. It became a huge meme because of just how terrible it is. Oh, man. That was the guy that was with my mother when they were researching spiders right before she died. Like, that became a huge meme. It's bad in every possible department a movie can be bad in. The action, for how little there is in here, there's like 2 scenes of action, is horrible, where like the ambulance crashes through that building at one point, and it's going to miss the main villain. I don't even remember who the villain is. I don't remember his name or anything about him. I just remember this scene where the ambulance is crashing through a building, it's going to miss him, so the villain jumps in front of the ambulance so it'll hit him. Every part of this movie doesn't work. That is why Madame Web didn't do well. Not because the press had it out for Madame Web for some reason. It's just not a good movie. Tony just loves passing the blame and has the convenient excuse of the critics and the press. They also did it with Venom, but the audience loved Venom and made Venom a massive hit. These are not terrible films, they were just destroyed by the critics and the press for some reason. Now, there has never been a time in history where people have less faith in critics than now. So I promise you, it doesn't matter what the critics are saying, it's not really going to change how people feel when they leave a movie. In fact, a lot of times, people will go see a film in spite of how much they distrust the journalists that cover it. This is not an excuse that works. Like, I fucking can't stand, like, IGN, for example. But if IGN said Venom was the worst movie ever made and I go see it and I like it, I'm not going to let that IGN review change the way I felt about the movie. This is a stupid scapegoat that you're trying here, Tony. Now, of course, I do still believe that sometimes reviews, if they're just overwhelmingly negative, will scare some people away from seeing it, and those people will be more reserved and wait to see what others say. But I think in cases of like a superhero movie, the people that are planning to see it are the same ones that are probably going to already distrust the critics and the press and what they say about a film. The big thing is no one wanted to go see these because they're not interested in seeing them, and they already knew that they were likely going to be bad. Completely regardless of what the press was already saying about it. Now, in the case of Venom, Venom is also not an amazing movie. There is not an amazing movie in the Venom trilogy, but that trilogy is at least fun. There's action, there's charm, there's comedy that works from time to time. So those movies are entertaining to watch. Craven, Madame Web, Morbius, those movies are a slog. They are a chore to sit through. It's a punishment if you have to watch one of those. Like, it's not comparable. It seems like they're finally throwing in the towel for this strategy that just has not been working at all, saying, I do think we need to rethink it just because it's snake bitten. If we put another one out, it's going to get destroyed no matter how good or bad it is. Again, that's just hope you haven't made a good one yet. Like, that's the problem. Tony just being all pathetic about it and pouting. You know, even if we made a masterpiece, everyone's just gonna call it stinky anyway. Like, brother, you just haven't made anything good. It's also a bad idea that you tried in the first place. Look, man, it didn't work. Move on. But stop trying to push the blame onto the way the press reacted to the bad movies. Anybody that watched them will say the same thing about them, that they just weren't good. Like, Craven and Madame Web are 2 of the worst movies of the year. But anyway, though, the reason I'm talking about Tony is because it's a good insight into the people that lead these massive corporations and just how far from the public consciousness they are, where he is with a straight face saying that the reason Madame Web and Craven are failing isn't because they're bad movies, because they're not. It's just because of the press. That's so delusional. They are just not good movies. Again, I don't expect Tony to come out here and eat a mouthful of ass on it, being like, yep, these movies are garbage. I just expect him to just be more honest about it and say, like, hey, looks like you guys weren't responding super positively to these films, so we're going to re-strategize this approach to this universe. Like, that's, like, you're acknowledging that people don't like them without making excuses for it, and you're talking about how you're going to go forward and hopefully learn from this failure. But in today's day and age, there is no such thing as a CEO that gets it. It's just like Ubisoft here, constantly doing the same shit and wondering why it's failing without ever taking a moment to see the root cause of what's causing the failure. That's exactly the street Tony is walking right now. The Ubisoft path. But with terrible, no Spider-Man movies that he's pumping out. I am curious to see what they plan to do going forward now, though. Honestly, they should just sell the rights. Like, they clearly cannot use it very well. I think it is about time they just fully throw in the towel and call it quits on it. But regardless, even if they do continue this path going forward, not going to bother me much because I like bad movies. But unfortunately, almost all of these haven't been fun bad. They've been waste of time bad, which is the worst kind. But I guess we'll see what happens next for Sony Pictures here in this universe they've built up. It's really about it. So yeah. This is embarrassing for me to say out loud, but I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off. I'm only human. I know it's cringe. I'm ashamed. I wish I was something more, but that's the truth of the matter. That's the brass tacks. I'm just a simple mortal, just like all of you. Only shorter. Though I prefer to call myself fun-sized. I smile when I'm happy. I frown when I'm sad, and today I'm frowning, because From Software seems to be going into Sony's clutches. A lot of information has come out since I covered this story a few days back about the parent company of From Software, Kadokawa, being acquired by Sony. A move that I think would potentially ruin FromSoft's spotless record. From Software has been under Kadokawa for a long time, and under them, they've been able to produce some of the best games we've ever seen, at least in my opinion. It's my favorite genre. The Souls series, the whole Souls genre, is so near and dear to my boners, and I don't want to see anything jeopardize that quality that From Software has been able to deliver, and I truly believe under Sony's umbrella, there is a chance it gets shitified. Truly shitified. Sony has a proven track record of being very hands-on, putting their fingers in the pies, going into the kitchen with the cooks and pretending like they know better with the recipe. We've seen it multiple times, and trust me, I know Sony's not just one person. It's not, Paul Sony at the head of it pulling all the strings. I get it. But Sony, as an entity in the gaming space, has some high highs and some very low lows. And recently, it's been a lot of lows for Sony in gaming. I'm not going to keep bringing up Concord, but I just brought up Concord. You're welcome. The point is, and Helldivers 2, I will never let that go. The point is, I just would like to see From Software continue to operate the way that it has been, because I think they've been operating optimally. And a few days back, it was reported that Kadokawa, the parent company of From Software, was in talks with Sony to be bought out by them. A move that I was not necessarily, getting excited for. You wouldn't catch me ripping my shirt off like Hulk Hogan going ballistic celebrating. So I was a little concerned, and I was hoping that maybe the talks would fall apart, like maybe I'd put in a phone call to Kadokawa and beg them, grovel at their feet to not do it. A lot more information has come out since that. And also, I didn't even recognize just how big Kadokawa was, even outside of gaming. From Software is a component of Kadokawa, but it's not the biggest part. Kadokawa actually has a massive publishing arm. They are huge for manga. And Sony has already shown that they love monopolies, such as the whole Crunchyroll Funimation debauchery. I'm not going to get into that. Sony, with a Kadokawa purchase, would not only give them FromSoft, which of course hurts me down to my very soul, but it would give them like a fucking stranglehold on manga, at least to a certain extent. They wouldn't have all of it, but they'd have a sizable chunk of that market. They would have like publishing manga by the fucking nipples and a titty twister with Kadokawa under Sony. And as I said, I think consolidation is not good. Like having everything in the world be owned by like a few mega corporations, like super giga corporations, is atrocious. That's a bad future. And it's looking like this is kind of gonna be a done deal pretty soon, because this new information actually shows that It was Karakawa going to Sony asking for them to purchase them, not the other way around. The lore starts to become thicker than a bowl of oatmeal as we get introduced to a new villain here, Kakao. So, Karakawa had actually been pushing Sony towards a purchase. There was fear that Karakawa would be subject to a hostile takeover from the South Korean company Kakao. Now, I'm not going to sit here and cosplay Smart Man and pretend that I know anything about Kakao. This is the first time I've ever heard of this company. I know butt fuck all about them. Only what I've looked up. And they are massive. Like, they are a huge company. They got the nuts over there. Like, that company doesn't have a great reputation from what I've read about, but they have a lot of power and they got a lot of doubloons at their disposal. And it seems like there was claims of a hostile takeover of Karakawa by Kakao. And Karakawa did not want to be owned by a foreign entity, thus they approached Sony with this offer of buying them out. According to Bloomberg reports, they'd both been going back and forth for a number of years, with the former wanting Sony to make the full purchase, whereas Sony was really just kind of interested in the strategic investments in anime and video game IP. But Karakawa is sticking to their guns saying, no, you get the whole kit and caboodle if you want us. So it's Karakawa that wants Sony to buy everything. It also mentions that Tencent, Kakao, and Microsoft all expressed interest in Karakawa. It doesn't confirm that they wanted to fight off a foreign entity, but it's very heavily implied, and mentions that this purchase would be more about the anime and manga that Sony would then have in its meaty paws. They really would have a ton of that market. Based on everything I've been reading about, if Sony gets Karakawa, that's kind of scary for anime and manga. To have one company have that much, that is pretty yucky. And it seems like that's the direction this is going. It's pretty sad. I'm not excited about it, but learning about Kakao being potentially worse kind of helps the pill go down a little easier through my gullet. If it's between Sony and Kakao, most people are saying Sony is the lesser of two evils. Again, I am in the dark on Kakao, but people seem to treat them like Voldemort. Like, there are people that just really seem to hate that company. But I know Sony like the wrinkles on my nutsack, so I can say with confidence, I am not thrilled about them being in control of From Software. I'm not optimistic about the direction that they would push them. Like, I really feel like they would micromanage From Software, and it seems like Sony is hell-bent on injecting live service into any fucking thing that breathes. It's disgusting. So I'm not super optimistic about that. This really seemed like choosing between poop and shit, with Sony and Kakao being the only options here. And from what I'm reading, it looks like we're choosing the poop, which arguably better than the shit, I suppose. So I guess we'll see how it all plays out. Should this actually be finalized? It's not, it's not in the books yet, but it seems like it's kind of already checkmate here. And a lot of people were saying, well, why can't things just continue as they have been? Why can't it just be business as usual and let FromSoft and Karakawa just keep doing what they're doing? Well, that's not how a hostile takeover works. If Kakao really is setting their sights on that, they wouldn't be able to just, plug their ears and close their eyes to it. It's not like they can just ignore it and it goes away like the boogeyman or something. So it looks like there's going to be some changes with FromSoft. Hopefully I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. I hope like in a year from now, 2 years from now, whenever FromSoft has their next big game on the horizon, I hope I am proven so wrong. Like maybe they only get better under Sony's leadership. But I'm still not happy about it in general. Even if you're like the biggest Sony fan, you should still not celebrate something like this because, again, consolidation is not good for industries. It's just not. You don't want everything to be owned by just a handful of unbelievably powerful, gluttonous corporations. It's not good. And that's exactly what will happen if this goes through. Not necessarily with gaming. Yes, they get another huge studio under their belt, but where they'd have a ton of power would be in the anime manga sector, where they are big boys. Big boys. Absolutely mammoth boys. Like, they would be huge. And that's not good, because you need things to be competitive with other companies out there. And it wouldn't be like a monopoly or anything. There is others that would be competing, but it's still not good to consolidate like that. At least I don't think so. I feel like most people probably feel the same. So anyway, I just wanted to give you a little update to this story because this is a little different than I thought it would be. I thought this was Sony getting extremely greedy and approaching Kadokawa. It was actually the other way around, where Kadokawa came to them in like an emergency situation, like, hey, we'd really rather be with you guys than Kakao. We think you guys would be better partners than Kakao. So it was Shu being on the other foot here. It was Kadokawa approaching them. So that does change things a lot. That's really about it. So yeah. I love From Software games. All of you know that. And right now, it feels like a hostage situation where they've been kidnapped. And right now, they have a bazooka placed against their temple with big threats. The villains behind this diabolical plot are Sony. They're looking to try and purchase Kadokawa, which is the majority shareholder of FromSoft. Right now, Sony also has a percentage of From Software, but if they acquire Kadokawa, the parent company, they will have like 80+% of From Software. It'll be under Sony's thumb, and that thumb is stinky. That thumb will go right up your ass and will never come out. Sony, it's not just From Software, by the way. Kadokawa owns a ton of things. A lot of big anime projects, visual novels, really a whole host of things. From Software is just a component, and I do believe a big component of it. And I truly feel if this deal goes through, the From Software that we've all come to know and love with hearts in our eyes will be crumbled to dust under the tyrannical rule of Sony. I have not been the biggest fan of Sony in recent years. I think for a while they were doing some pretty good shit and pushing the industry in a decent direction, but over the last, I'd say like 8 years, it's been really bad, where you can point to tons of unethical business practices and a lot of like greedy shit they've done. There's no point in regurgitating a lot of things I've already talked about there. But you can also just point to the handling of properties that people really like, such as Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2 was an absolute breakout superstar. That shit was prom queen and everyone was giving it its flowers, and then Sony comes in there and they want to shitify it. You can hear the classic 90s record scratch sound as Sony storms the stage, grabs the mic, and makes a fucking fool of themselves, where they talk about how you need to link your PSN account in order to play on the PC, which wasn't made clear to the people who purchased it on PC, where there was like a fucking grace period or something where you had Sony's blessing to play with just Steam without linking your PSN. Then they said that you're going to need to link that PSN, which would have locked out tons and tons of players, which obviously got a lot of pushback because they bought this game and they were about to lose access to it because of this new decision here that was made entirely from Sony's own fucking corporate greed. Then there was a lot of refunds with people refunding Helldivers 2 en masse. Eventually Sony panics. They say, hey, wait a minute. Just kidding. Just kidding. Not going to do that. Imagine if we did though, right? Nope, not doing that. We're not going through with that anymore. Just a huge, easily avoidable disaster. But Sony couldn't help themselves. They couldn't help but put their little grubby paws in the cookie jar. I just think there's plenty of evidence to suggest that Sony is not great for consumers. And certainly not great for fans of From Software product if they get their mitts on it. I think if From Software does end up under the Sony umbrella fully, exclusivity is on the table. Exclusivity is on the menu. Not thrilled about that. I also think they're going to be forcing From Software to work on projects they don't really want to. From Software is in a really good flow state. They have only released bangers since Demon's Souls. Like, they have actually a spotless record because they make the games that they want to make. They have the luxury of not being beholden to someone like Sony. Yes, they have a parent company, but it's not breathing down their neck, and it's not forcing things into those products that they don't want there. At least nothing that's been publicly shared that I've seen. Except for Bloodborne. And do you know why Bloodborne is out of From Software's hands? Why we haven't seen a Bloodborne remaster, remake, or even a PC port? Why it's still 30 FPS locked and just caught out cold in the rain? Just made a whole video about this. Well, the reason is because of Sony. Sony owns it. Sony owns the Bloodborne IP. And they have chosen to sit on their hands with it and just lock it away in the fucking basement, feeding it scraps. They're granny shifting, not double clutching like they should with the property, so it just sits there festering. And it's a shame, because From Software has said they would do something with it. They'd be open to doing something with Bloodborne. They can't. It's not theirs. So Sony has showcased that they already don't do anything with a From Software IP that they have, one that is always, always coveted, and they just refuse to use it. So what kind of picture does that paint for the future of From Software being fully under Sony? I wouldn't be surprised if Sony just actually hates From Software and they're doing this deal just to shut them down. I don't know what vendetta they have against that company, but they don't use Bloodborne, even though it'd probably be a big slam dunk. I really think so, because most people with fucking eyes and a functioning frontal lobe would tell you that Bloodborne anything would be a pretty smash success at the moment, but they refuse to do it, probably out of spite is what I feel like. And if they get From Software from this acquisition, I just feel like they just put them doing shit like making Jump Force 2, like, hey, From Software, what are you working on? Elden what? An Elden what sequel? That'll never work. That's never gonna fly. No one wants that. So instead of letting you guys do what you want, because you clearly don't know what you guys are doing, which is why we came in to save the day. Instead, we're gonna put you on something we know is going to succeed. You ever heard of Concord? Yeah, we're gonna bring it back for another rodeo here with a campaign only component, because we had a great story to tell, and we think you guys are the ones to deliver this. So we're gonna get you on a Concord spinoff. Like, I just feel like Sony would not be a good partner, a parent company for From Software. It is a fit that already has data to suggest they don't mesh well, because Sony already has one of their most well-known IP, Bloodborne. Most people on the fucking planet that have played a video game have heard of that game. And yet Sony has that. They've got a golden goose. And all they do is fuck it. Not even. They don't even give it that kind of attention. They just keep it in a cage. They don't do anything with it. So I just don't see this being a good fit at all. So if Sony gets Kodakawa, I'm not happy about it. I would love to be proven wrong if it goes through and maybe they're a great partner for FromSoft. That'd be amazing. I just don't see it happening. Instead, I see the most likely thing being telling FromSoft, you guys need to remaster Dark Souls again. You guys need to remake Demon Souls again. Just like stupid, nonsensical decisions. Or like classic Sony maneuvers of turning shit into a live service experience. You guys need to live service Elden Ring. It's nothing that gets me excited. It makes me scared. Because I think FromSoft has been operating optimally. I think what they have been doing for the last decade plus has been perfection. They are the gold standard developer that most people praise and like prop up as, this is how you do it right. And I feel like under Sony that's jeopardized. It just seems like a totally different business philosophy from Sony versus Kodakawa, which From Software is currently under. Kodakawa seems very hands-off. They seem to just let FromSoft do what they do best. Sony, I don't think they've ever really showed that. Like, they seem to micromanage the fuck out of everything. It seems like they are constantly, molding things and getting as involved as they can in there and like trying to force things in there where it shouldn't be. And I just don't think that works with From Software. But I want to go a step further here, where even just setting aside my feelings on FromSoft meshing with Sony, like let's say you totally disagree with me on that, that's totally fine. I think this is just bad for the industry entirely. This consolidation that we're seeing here, with companies just absorbing everything around them into these like giant mega corpo shit, that's bad. You should be wanting more competitors outside of like just the big three that are just like this gluttonous glob that's eating everything around them like it's a fucking game of Snake, and they just keep buying other other organizations and companies. It's better to have companies in a position like FromSoft that aren't with Sony. That is good, because then they can operate on their own terms as opposed to under the giant company's terms, where so many other games are already in there. Like, it's better to have a lot more in the space as opposed to all of it being consolidated. Like, it's getting to the point where it's ridiculous. So it's just, I think, bad for the industry to keep going in this direction where everything and everyone is getting consolidated. It's alarming. But yeah, I'm really hoping this deal doesn't go through. I would hate to see From Software smothered by Sony. And like I mentioned earlier, Kodakawa has a ton under their belt. And Sony having all of that also just doesn't make me happy either. It's a lot that Sony would get, not just From Software, and I just don't have any confidence in Sony doing good things with it. I really don't. So yeah, big old fuck you to Sony. Please don't do it. That's really about it. See ya.
I'm going to try and use my power of incorrect predictions for good instead of evil. I will boldly, proudly, with my whole chest state that Bloodborne 2 will not be revealed at the Game Awards. A statement I didn't even think needed to be uttered, but the hopium, it's overflowing right now. The cup runneth over here for people to see Bloodborne 2 at the Game Awards next week, because Jeff Keighley posted a wacky statue, which does look very cool. It's a very aesthetically pleasing little doodad there, a little doohickey. And then there was a reply to it with a bunch of, like, redacted information, like it was fucking Epstein files there at the Game Awards. And this sent people into a frenzy trying to find ways to brute force Bloodborne into it to make it seem like this is confirmation it'll be Bloodborne 2. I don't buy into it at all. Would love to be wrong, though I'm going to tell you, I'm batting with a tremendous record right now when it comes to my predictions on Bloodborne 2 not being real and probably never being real, at least not for many more moons to come. But anyway, let me show you the statue, let me show you the Game Awards riddle around it so you can start forming your own thoughts on what it could be. And then I want to tell you a little new piece of information that dropped this morning, a little tidbit that I think would be so fucking embarrassing if this actually is the reveal. But you know what would be even more embarrassing? If people found out you didn't shower using Cheeky soap. It's the best soap in the universe. What are you waiting for? And right now is the perfect time around the holiday season because Queso and I just got our collab soap out. We got the Naughty and Nice. So go to usecheeky.com right now and really upgrade your hygiene game. Yes, I want to talk about the Jeff Keighley cryptic tweet that a lot of people are speculating could be a reference to Half-Life 3, to Bloodborne 2, and all that. So it's this right here. I already talked about it when it got posted. It's that right there, but the Game Awards replied with this. The blank are silent, blank bleeds, new blank stir. And that right there has been a bomb in the Bloodborne hopium community. It's a very cool statue, by the way. Very cool. They do this every year. Not really to this degree. There's never been a year where I thought, maybe it could be Bloodborne until now. And even then, I still don't really think that. I just think if someone's going to go this hard for, like, teasing an announcement, it's either gotta be something people have been begging for a long time, or a delusional company that's about to just beclown themselves in front of the entire Game Awards and God. Like, imagine this is all just an announcement for some, like, fucking shovelware gacha game or something. It's definitely not going to be Elder Scrolls. If you want to know what I think it is, and I don't think anyone's going to be, like, necessarily pleased, I think it's Saros. So, if you look at Saros, and this is a game that's got, like, a lot of meat behind it, and it looks like a cool game, I think it's this. They've already teased this game before. The style of that statue is kind of similar. I think it's probably going to be Saros. And I also don't know how this would have, like, applied to Bloodborne other than the reach of, like, New Blood Stir or something, Moon Bleeds or whatever. I just do not think it's Bloodborne 2. But do you really think they would do all this marketing for a game that's already announced? Seems like a waste. Brother, it's the video game industry. Of course they would. They do all kinds of nonsensical shit. The hunters are silent. It could be. I'm kidding, it won't be. I'm still very confident this is not Bloodborne. I don't even think the style really looks all that Bloodborne-esque. This would be a crazy departure from the aesthetic of Bloodborne. It literally has to be Duskbloods. See, Duskbloods I could definitely see. Since we don't know a ton about it, it is FromSoft, so they'd probably go hog wild for it. I could definitely see it being Duskbloods. Diablo 4, maybe. That would be the most deflating shit. That'd be worse than a gacha game announcement. If they're just announcing a new patch. All we know for sure is that it's not God of War, Elder Scrolls 6, or Diablo. All those have been debunked. Unless it's a red herring. Just like when they said they weren't going to show us a Silent Hill trailer at the PlayStation Now like 6 months ago, and then they did at the end. As a bait and switch. Diablo 4 Season 11 goes live on December 11th, 8:30 PST, right after the Game Awards. Take that as you will. God, that is going to be the most foolish fucking thing if this actually is Diablo 4. So now, what if I told you that there is quite a bit of meat behind the theory that this statue is related to the Lords of the Fallen? For those that don't remember, Lords of the Fallen, well, the original Lords of the Fallen was one of the worst Souls-like games for its time. That shit blew major ass. I even replayed that a few years back when I was going through like my Souls marathon, and I just couldn't finish it. It was too goddamn awful. They reignited that franchise 2 years ago with The Lords of the Fallen, and when this puppy released, let me tell you, it came to an overwhelming cacophony of meh. The reception was that the game was okay, it was mid. I played it on release, and it was clunky with a lot of problems, but it had some interesting ideas. Over the course of the last couple of years, they've released like 70 or something updates to it to try and put lipstick on that pig, and as I understand it, it is much better now than it was when it came out. So hats off to them for putting in the effort to make it better. I haven't gone through and tested it myself, but I'll trust people's words that it is in a much better state now than it was when it released. But even still, I don't know how strong the Lords of the Fallen community is to be salivating to such a degree that they would commit to this, like, big marketing push, this, like, cryptic thing, all to reveal more Lords of the Fallen content on its way. I feel like if that is the case, and I'll show you the evidence here, the audience will be silent. Like, even fans of Lords of the Fallen are saying, like, this would be pretty underwhelming if it's you guys doing this. Because, like, again, even though the game's in a better state now, it's not exactly something that people have been dreaming about, fucking soiling their britches hoping for, and getting, like, this really big, like, mystery ahead of the Game Awards where some big things do get revealed. It would feel very, like, if it is Lords of the Fallen 2. Anyway, though, they posted this tweet, "Something stirs within, ready to rupture," and people were quick to notice that something stirs within so soon after the Game Awards thing. Well, that's a little odd considering Stirs is there as well. And the aesthetic of the statue does match the aesthetic in Lords of the Fallen. Also, the way Jeff Keighley initially tweeted, "Regal inspiring thickness," is very similar to how Lords of the Fallen tweeted, "Executions, tentacles, rotting corpses," all things also present on that statue. There is also mention on their Twitter of blood and bleeding. They like to use the word bleed a lot. So there are some things that seem to suggest this could be Lords of the Fallen related. But nothing concrete, nothing confirmed, but that right now seems to be the leading theory. And if that is the case, wow, what a letdown that will be. Like, I hope Lords of the Fallen 2 will be great and a huge improvement on the first one. But man, to get like everyone's hopes up that this could be something that we've been waiting for a long time, only to have it be Lords of the Fallen 2, would be such a shame. I feel like there'd be very few people that would find that satisfying if that's the reveal. I don't think there's gonna be fucking people pumping their fist, "Oh yeah!" or anything like that. But we'll see. Again, it's not confirmed to be Lords of the Fallen 2. This could still very well be something else, something big. But I don't think it's going to be any of, like, the crazy pie-in-the-sky ones. I don't think it's going to be Bloodborne 2. I think there's a fucking 0% chance of that. I think I'll probably hit a growth spurt before that game ever comes out. I don't think this is Half-Life 3 related at all. And I don't think this is Elder Scrolls related either. So, anyway, I just wanted to talk about this a bit. That's it. So, yeah. Sometimes what you need to hear isn't what you want to hear. Like the time in high school when I told a girl I liked her and she said, "Ew." Did I want to hear that? No. Did it make me stronger and did I learn from it? No. Absolutely not. That was like the meanest possible response. But point is, sometimes you gotta get the cold water. And that's what I'm doing today. I'm splashing you with that cold water. Bloodborne is never getting a remake, a remaster, or a PC port, and especially not a sequel. I'm putting my foot down.
Every single video game conference and every single year, everyone in chat is spamming Bloodborne announcements coming. This is the one. Finally, Bloodborne. We're going to get Bloodborne port news, this and that. And now the big cope is Bloodborne's 10-year anniversary is coming up. They're finally going to say something about it. I'm going to tell you right now, it's not coming. The closest we will ever get to anything new Bloodborne related is from the fans who are working diligently to bring it to PC with improved visuals and improved frame rate. They are doing the Lord's work, and I think that'll be the last chapter in the Bloodborne legacy when that's finally completed and brought to PC. I don't think Sony will ever do anything with Bloodborne again. They will let it fester and rot away, collecting cobwebs in their bin of forgotten toys they don't feel like playing with. It doesn't make me happy to say these things. I am a massive Bloodborne fan. It's tied with Elden Ring for my favorite Souls game ever made. And that's the entire genre of Souls, Soulsborne, Souls-like, whatever terminology you want to use. Bloodborne and Elden Ring are tied for me at the number one spot. I think the game is legitimately a masterpiece, and I would love to see more from it. But unfortunately, I think the only way I'll see more from it is if I close my eyes and just fucking imagine it. Put myself in a box like SpongeBob and Patrick and pretend I'm playing Bloodborne 2 or Bloodborne on PC. I don't think it will ever actually come. I do think, though, that someone will probably license the Bloodborne IP and maybe do like some kind of big show out of it. I could see that happening. I believe Sony would be more willing to license it out for like a show production than they would to make another game out of it. So that I do think could be on the table. I just don't think there's going to be any more Bloodborne games or a Bloodborne port or remaster, whatever. I don't think that's coming. But I could see a world where it at least has a show out of it, because everything's getting shows nowadays, and this is still a hot property that people talk about every day for the last fucking 9 years. So there is meat behind it, and I think that they might try and capitalize off that at some point. Fucking Concord has a whole episode dedicated to it in that upcoming Secret Level show, and that game died in 2 weeks. That game actually just got pulled off life support in 2 weeks. So games to shows pipeline is hot right now, and I think that could definitely happen for Bloodborne, but I don't think there's going to be a game for it. Even though Miyazaki and the team seem to really still love Bloodborne, he has gone on record to say that they don't own that IP. Unfortunately, and I've said this in other interviews, it's not my place to talk about Bloodborne specifically. We simply don't own the IP at From Software. Sony owns it, and it's very important to mention this, that Sony's first-party developer, Japan Studio, which is defunct, had a major role in the development of Bloodborne. So, a big speculation is that because Japan Studio is in the Shadow Realm now, that's been fucking vaporized, that kind of took Bloodborne with it. But we can sit around in a circle till the cows come home and speculate, articulate, gyrate, ejaculate, all brainstorming about why Sony is sitting on a gold mine like Bloodborne and never really know the full answer. I have my own theories that I'll share with you. I think the Japan studio shutdown is probably a big component of it, but I personally just believe that Sony doesn't have a lot of faith in the IP. And in the modern AAA gaming landscape, if there's even an iota of doubt, companies don't pull the trigger on it because it's very expensive, especially for something as big as Bloodborne. I talked about this on stream, and people brought up Armored Core 6. Armored Core 6 sold, I think it was 3 million copies, which was actually a big success for them because they didn't put, the $100 million budget behind that title, and it still fucking crushed it. Bloodborne, that would be a chunky financial development cycle. Like, that would cost a lot, and the first Bloodborne sold 7 million copies, which is really good, don't get me wrong. That's great by any metric, except Sony's. I am of the firm belief that Sony only thinks in $100+ million. So, take for example Concord. Absolute catastrophe, complete disaster. I already mentioned Voldemort's name earlier in this video already. That is the biggest flop in entertainment history. But that was a flop that cost hundreds of millions of dollars to Sony, because they put all their eggs in that basket of Concord thinking that it could have the same kind of power as the juggernauts in the industry. completely delusional, but the point is, I feel like they only put their elbow grease in hundreds of millions of dollars worth of development time and games that they are confident could somehow compete at that level. And I don't think they feel that way about Bloodborne. Let's take, for example, Horizon. Horizon is already getting a remake despite only being 7 years old, but that's because Horizon sold over 20 million copies. Now, of course, I've said this before, and many others have as well. You could very easily make the argument that Horizon sales numbers are inflated, they're really boosted. It's almost like fucking Viewbots to a certain extent, where Horizon was just bundled with every fucking PlayStation for so long that obviously those sales numbers are going to be heavily boosted for it. So I still think the game is extraordinarily popular and sold many, many millions of copies, but I think the 20 million plus that it sold is definitely helped by it being part of the bundle. But regardless, to Sony's eyes, the corporate vampires at the top, the goddamn fucking husks in the suits, they're just seeing the numbers. Horizon, huge numbers. This must mean that it's a slam dunk guarantee anytime we touch this property. So that's why they put so much behind it. You got Lego Horizon coming out. You've got Horizon out the wazoo. Horizon being shoved in every orifice on the human body for gamers. It is because Sony has seen huge numbers and huge returns, so they keep doing more with it. With Bloodborne, there is a single game that sold very well, but it's also been a long time, so maybe they're just skeptical that, this very vocal group might not go out and buy it. Because that is a very real possibility too, with things, and I mentioned this on stream, like the new Prince of Persia Lost Crown. People have been begging for a good Prince of Persia game for God knows how long, and begging for a good Ubisoft game for Lord knows how long. And finally, a great Prince of Persia game came out from Ubisoft, and it flopped. Nobody bought it. But the people that did really liked it. I've heard it's one of the best games of the year. I actually haven't played it myself yet because I'm still playing through 9 Souls, but the people I've seen glazing this game are people whose tastes usually align with mine when it comes to games, so I do think that they're probably right that the game slaps. And even though the game came out and was very well received, it highly underperformed for them. And that happens from time to time, where something is highly requested, people are really wanting something, fucking foaming at the mouth, saying like, we need this is like this is a home run, this is a layup if they just deliver it. Then the thing comes out and it doesn't translate to success. That does happen from time to time. You can never really be sure based on like the people that are very vocal about it. You never really know for sure. And I think that's something that Sony might think for Bloodborne, but I feel like Bloodborne is at a point where it is so well known and comes from a developer that has so much prestige that shouldn't be a thought that crosses their mind. I'm just saying that it is a possibility that it is something they consider. I can't even pretend to be in Sony's shoes, because if it was me, this would be a no-brainer to do something with Bloodborne. At least a PC port that would have come out many years ago with me at the helm. Like, that feels like it should be so obvious, and that's such a small lift, like a small investment to just port to PC. Like, I know I'm kind of downplaying like what the work that goes into it, but comparatively to a full-blown AAA title being developed, like that one is significantly easier for them to have done, and it would have just been pure profit, because the word of this game is spread for so long, so wide. I think so many people probably would have just gotten it to be part of the crew, part of the ship, you know what I mean? Like, oh, Bloodborne's finally here on PC, I can do that, I can play that now. And I think it would have just popped off for it. But I'm just saying, like, even though like there's a very vocal group that wants something to come out, it doesn't always mean it's going to be super successful. But in the case of Bloodborne, I really feel like it probably would. FromSoft is just one of the most beloved developers in the world right now. Everything they touch turns to gold. It's so stupid to not use Bloodborne, but Sony is choosing to just squat on it. I saw someone make a really good point as well in the comments section a little while ago about like Sony's apprehension to do anything with Bloodborne being even more confusing when you consider that one of their big titles for the PS5, like their next gen, like super system seller type title, was Demon's Souls Remake. Demon's Souls was, when it came out, a under-the-radar game. Like, that wasn't a household name by any means. The original Demon's Souls, I think, eventually pushed over 2 million once Dark Souls popped off and people wanted to go back and experience, like, the first of the Souls series. But it was not a widely popular game. Demon's Souls Remake, though, they went hard with and put a lot behind. However, it's also not performed like amazingly for them based on what I can tell. The most recent sales figures I can find put it at just over 2 million copies of Demon's Souls Remake, which I don't think is entirely on Demon's Souls' shoulders here. I think it's because of the scarcity of the PS5 initially. You were more likely to find a fucking Chaos Emerald than you were to find a PS5 for the first couple years. So obviously it's not going to have spectacular sales numbers, but maybe that plays a role in FromSoft being so apprehensive to use the Bloodborne IP for even like a remake. I don't know, but it is very odd that they chose to remake Demon's Souls, which did not perform very well, instead of doing Bloodborne, which did. Even when Bloodborne came out, it was massive. It was a huge success. It's not like it just retroactively became a big success. Demon's Souls did, but not Bloodborne. Bloodborne was always a success. Yet they haven't touched it. They haven't done anything with it. The closest thing we've had to anything new Bloodborne related is from fucking Astrobot with a costume for Bloodborne. It's so weird. I don't know why they wouldn't have chose Bloodborne for the PS5 remake. That would have made so much more sense. I really like Demon's Souls remake. I had a great time with it. But just really looking at it, I don't know what Sony has against Bloodborne. Like, the more I break it down, I just cannot fathom this hate boner they have for Bloodborne. I don't get it. I really don't. There's gotta be something more behind the scenes that's leading to them not doing anything with it. I've thrown out so many silly theories and thought processes they might have that leads to them not touching it, but at the end of the day, I don't get it. I think it would have been very simple to do the bare minimum of just giving it an update for a PC port, a remaster, so that way you can go over 30 FPS, because the game is still 30 FPS. Like, it would have been the easiest thing in the world just to do a small scale project with it. Instead of, if you don't want to cannonball into the pool, whatever, I guess, it would have just been so easy for Sony to test the waters and see how it would, like how the community would respond, if it would be successful or not. And it just doesn't make sense that they haven't. They do this for so many games that are significantly less popular than Bloodborne, and I don't get it. While I may not understand the real motive or reason why Bloodborne is so stagnant and Sony prefers to just let it get stale and collect dust, I do know for sure that they're not going to change. Sony has proven to me time and time again that they are a creature of habit. If they have decided they don't want to use the Bloodborne IP, they're just not going to use it ever. I think Sony as a company will probably wither and die and fucking dissolve before they ever do anything with Bloodborne again. I do think they could make a show out of it, like I said earlier. I think they will eventually start licensing it for shows and all of that, but I do not think there will ever be another Bloodborne game, like an official one, a sequel or a remaster. And I just want to throw this Hail Mary out there because I know it goes against what a lot of people believe, that eventually we'll see more from Bloodborne because we have to. It's so popular, it doesn't make sense why we wouldn't. I just truly think Sony is going to play hardball with it and, out of spite maybe, never use Bloodborne again. That's my theory, and I just wanted to put it out there. I think people got to stop getting their hopes up at every single video game conference to see Bloodborne-related news, because I don't think it's ever coming. Now, I do have a track record of being very wrong, where I make these predictions, and then within like a month, it's completely washed. I made a similar prediction for Halo Infinite, though I will say I was partially correct, because what I talked about with Halo Infinite is that the game they showed would never come out, and it never did. What we got with Halo Infinite was a much more half-baked version of what they used to show. So I'm gonna stick to my guns on that a little bit. I was kind of half right with Halo Infinite. I was super wrong with Elden Ring, though. I said Elden Ring probably wouldn't be coming out for like another 5 or so years, if it even existed at the current moment, and then it came out like the following year. So, I don't have the best track record with this, so this could serve a really noble purpose of like kind of jinxing it into existence, where I'm saying Bloodborne's never coming, like a new Bloodborne, and then we'll get it in like a month or two. So, it's kind of a win-win. I'm either right that they never use Bloodborne again, or I'm wrong and we get more Bloodborne, which is a win for everybody. So, I just want to talk about it a little bit. That's about it. See ya. The PS5 Pro has just been revealed. and it's not going swimmingly. For a lot of people, it's very underwhelming. I've seen many people are super disappointed, feeling the same way I felt when I found out I wasn't going to be growing taller than 5'6", just inconsolable and outraged. And that's mainly because the PS5 Pro's pricing. It's 700 clams for the new console that doesn't have a disc drive, also doesn't include the stand, and for the upgrades that they showcased, does not feel warranted for 700 doubloons.
We want to give players the graphics that the game creators aspire to, at the high frame rates that players typically prefer. To do that, PS5 Pro substantially improves over PlayStation 5 in 3 ways. Here's what we call the Big 3.
These are improvements, no doubt, and they even give some of the numbers about like how much faster or more powerful the PS5 Pro is compared to the normal PS5. But when you actually see side-by-side comparisons, it feels less like a big 3 and more like a moderate trio. But there is one category that I think there is a substantial difference, and it's this one right here.
Here's The Last of Us Part 2 running on PS5 Pro. It has huge amounts of detail and targets a super smooth 60 frames per second. Let's compare this to the fidelity mode on PS5, which is only running at 30 frames per second and is therefore much choppier.
Don't stop!
Clearly there is a big difference there under these settings. However, I don't think that makes it worth the $700 price tag. If you try and argue that it does, I would just slap the crack pipe out of your hands.
Another way to compare the two consoles is to look at PS5 Pro versus Performance mode on PS5, both of which target 60 frames per second. What we see here is a difference in detail. PS5 Pro is much sharper and crisper than PS5.
Where? Are we looking at the same thing? They just copy and pasted the image and thought we wouldn't notice? This is not a $700 difference here. I'm not exaggerating when I say I stared at this image for close to about 10 minutes and I could not pick up on a single difference between the two here. The only thing that I could maybe speculate is that in the distance there, like on the tower, the text looks a little darker. Who gives a fuck? I've seen a lot of cope about this too, like, oh, you can't judge it because it's compressed YouTube footage. Obviously, in the actual PS5 Pro, which of course I have 10 of already, the difference is night and day. I can't even go back to the original PS5. It feels like I'm playing a Nintendo 64 compared to the PS5 Pro. Like, yeah, it's probably sharper and more crisp outside of a YouTube video, but even still, this is a very weak showcase of the PS5's power and justification for the $700 price tag.
For this, my favorite is the parade scene from Ratchet & Clank. Distant details are much clearer.
Where? Is there an individual pixel buried back there somewhere that's a bit more saturated than the others on the PS5? Am I trying to look for someone in the stands here? Like on the PS5 Pro, can I zoom into one of those audience members standing up and see like a bulge there with so much detail that their dick print starts to show through? Like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to be focusing on here because they are identical. The only tiny change I can see is on the PS5 Pro, you can see a bit more of that fucking floating tomato or whatever that is, like the basketball surrounded by leaves in the top right. But I think the only reason you can see that a little bit better is because the angle is a bit more to the right on the PS5 Pro than it is on the left. Though, I guess the leaves pop a little bit more. So, for $700, you get to see some more leaves in the background. Yeehaw. Imagine trying to convince yourself that it was worth it for something like that. Like your buddy comes over and he's like, this is kind of a waste of money. You're like, oh, why I never. I can't help but laugh at the absurdity of that claim. This is $700 well spent, my friend. Please take a seat and I'll show you, you simpleton. You pause the game and like zoom in on the background in like camera mode. Do you see that right there? Tomato. Bet you didn't notice it. In fact, you couldn't notice it on your poverty machine. No, the PS5 Pro, it's got all of the bells and whistles.
And here we can see Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is noticeably higher resolution throughout the scene, including the trees and procedural cars.
Is it? I can't tell. I don't think Superman with X-ray vision could spot any difference here. Honestly, maybe it's me on crazy pills. I thought the PS5 one on the left was the PS5 Pro for a moment because I actually thought that one looked a lot more crisp initially. But now that they're side by side, they just look the same. Like I'm looking at the leaves on the tree. I don't see any difference between them. The cars look exactly the same. The trash can on the sidewalk, there is no difference in. Like, where is this noticeable difference that he is referring to? Behold the power of the PS5 Pro. On the left, you can see Charles rendered on a standard PS5 model. Disgusting. Makes you want to close your eyes. But on the right, you can see him rendered using the new and improved PS5 Pro. Extraordinary detail with a picture so sharp it might slit your throat. Charles has never looked better. This is the power of the PS5 Pro.
PlayStation.
Play has no limits, and neither does money. Everyone's got infinite money, and it's time to play. So fork over $700 or $800 if you want that stand and that pesky disk drive, and then buckle your seatbelt to enjoy some PS4 games. Only possible with the PlayStation 5. I will never get tired of seeing them showing PS4 games during PS5 presentations. Like, yes, I know Last of Us 2 has been remastered for the PS5, but come on. It's been 4 years. Surely there has to be some PlayStation 5 titles that they can be showcasing at these events. I still think Demon's Souls Remake is the best looking game on the PlayStation 5, yet I never see shit from it. I don't know why Sony has like this hate boner for From Software. Like, I just saw that headline, a week ago, where they're like, we don't have any IP, boo-hoo, give me some fucking French cries. All our IPs, we don't have enough. Meanwhile, they're still sitting on Bloodborne. They haven't even bothered to port Bloodborne to the PC. They still don't even have like a 60 FPS version of Bloodborne. That is still just stranded, left out to die, and it is one of the biggest fucking IPs that they just squat on doing nothing with. And then you see these showcase events and they're still showing PS4 games at it. Like, wake up. Come back to reality. $700 for this doesn't make any sense. I completely agree with people shitting on this for that price point. It is an upgrade. Like, this is, no matter how you spin it, an upgrade to the existing PS5s, but it's not a $700 one. That is an entirely new console, and this is... it's barely even like a 1.5 of the current PS5. It's just not worth that amount of money. If this came out with a more reasonable price point, I don't think people would be as upset about it. I still think it's super silly to not just include the vertical stand for it. Like, you couldn't have just slid in that tiny piece of plastic. They probably have that lying around in the millions somewhere tucked in their warehouse. They can't just throw that into the box. Like, that's absurd. And you couldn't at least put like the disk drive in it to make a little bit more value behind this. It's just absolute lunacy, really. It is a delusional price point to be charging for what they're offering with the PS5 Pro. I do fully agree that this will probably look better outside of the YouTube videos, like the contrast and all of that they were trying to showcase here, and the sharpness and everything. I do think, yes, it will look better outside of this, but even if it looks exceptional, it's still just not worth the $700. We're not getting any new games with it or anything. We're also not even getting a stand or disk drive with it. You're getting like a graphical upgrade and a bit of a performance boost. And that's really nice. But it's not $700 nice. That is just the brass tacks of it. I just don't see any compelling arguments that justify that amount of money. Unless you just don't have a PS5 already and you have 700 clams lying around, then maybe this would be worth it for you. But if you already have a PS5, I don't see why you would spend this money to upgrade it. I just don't get it. So yeah, that's really about it. So yeah.
I love to see gamers win. It puts a smile on this old Scrooge's face. I just woke up. I am extremely tired, but this was such great news that I stumbled out of bed while still foggy and groggy and crawled my way over to this chair to talk about it, jubilated. I had a great dream, forgot most of it, but woke up to this news, which is even better than that dream I was having. The official PlayStation Twitter account posted this little zinger. Hey, divers. Nope, that's not what that says. Oh my fucking god. I'm so tired, it's got me struggling to read at a 3rd grade level. Helldivers fans, we've heard your feedback on the Helldivers 2 account linking update. The May 6 update, which would have required Steam and PlayStation Network account linking for new players and for current players beginning May 30th, will not be moving forward. We're still learning what is best for PC players, and your feedback has been invaluable. Thanks again for your continued support of Helldivers 2, and we'll keep you updated on future plans. They actually walked back that dog shit decision they made that was tanking the reputation of Helldivers 2. I am shocked. I made a video on this yesterday and I predicted that it was probably already too late and Sony would dig their feet into the ground and just lat spread and take it. And I was wrong. They admitted defeat and gave up. Super Earth is saved. Now, there is something I want to say about this statement that I couldn't help but kind of raise an eyebrow at. They said that they're still trying to figure out what's best for PC players. What do you mean, goofballs? Like, what's best for them is just you guys staying in your chairs with fucking suit and tie looking all stupid and don't touch the game. Clearly, that's the recipe for success with Helldivers 2. You, Sony, leave it alone. That is the best course of action, as this has very much proven. The only winning move for you, Sony, is not to play. Like, you need to be like Luigi here and just do nothing and win. I don't know why that's such a hard formula to crack here. It's not exactly like they're trying to craft the Krabby Patty. They've already got it. You just don't meddle with it again. Like, the last little sentence there in their statement almost reads like a threat. Somehow, Sony returned with another dogshit stupid idea on what they should do with Helldivers 2. Even though all they need to do is just sit back, relax, and let the game continue to flourish and pop off. Because it has been an absolute staple in gaming for the last couple months it's been out. And I don't know why they're doing all they can to try and find creative ways of ruining that. So I'm a little concerned they're going to try something again with it in the future, because it really sounds like they want to do something to it. And it's probably going to be equally as dumb as this idea they hatched that almost ruined the game forever. I really hope those future plans they allude to are plans of just how to give the Helldivers 2 team more creative freedom without input from Sony. Because they clearly have the cheese touch when it comes to this one. Just stay off of it. Stay out of it. Scram. Get out of town and don't do this again. I'm very happy that the community seems very receptive to this walkback. The reviews on Helldivers 2 are already starting to improve. It's starting to heal, which is very nice. And people that were going to lose access to this game when this change went through now will no longer lose access to it. All around, a very happy ending with people cheering. Like that final scene in Star Wars when they burn Qui-Gon Jinn's body. That right now is Sony's body. Right now it's being burned as everyone is celebrating in a big way. So, it's not just the community that's happy, by the way. Arrowhead themselves is very, very happy because this does not seem like a decision they really wanted to be behind. So the CEO of Arrowhead made this statement. Firstly, I'm impressed by the willpower of the Helldivers 2 community and your ability to collaborate. Secondly, I want to thank our partners and friends at PlayStation for quickly and effectively making the decision to leave PSN linking optional. That one just sounds like he was held at gunpoint for it. Our partners and friends at PlayStation that did their best to sink 7 years worth of hard work. Really appreciate it. Thanks, guys. All things considered, though, they did move pretty quick on getting rid of this decision. Usually when it comes to a massive corporation like this, they don't move quick. Like, this was a matter of days. Usually it's a matter of weeks. So PlayStation did see that this was apocalyptic, like an absolutely catastrophic, awful decision, and they did reverse it pretty quickly. So that I do admit, which is nice. That is good to see. We together want to set a new standard for what a live game is and how developers and community can support each other to create the best game experiences. And Helldivers 2 has shown time and time again since its release that they really do want to set a new standard for live games. As I said in the last video, they have done everything right with the game itself. Like, it was nothing but W's until Sony decided to try and hand the biggest L to the game and the community possible. So now with Sony out of the picture with that decision, I'm excited to see where Helldivers 2 continues to go. It is a game that really deserves its success. It is so fucking impressive, like the passion behind it and just the very clear drive to want to make something special. So I'm happy that the game is recovering in the reviews. I'm happy people will continue to be able to play it without the fear of losing access to it because of the PSN linking debacle. all in all, a happy conclusion to this. There's also something cool that might be added to the game as a result of this that the CEO was joking about, and it's this accidental cape design, which is just basically the recent negative reviews that drove the graph really far down, like straight to hell. Like, that shit was looking like phase stock. And if you just isolate the negative reviews, you get something that resembles a cape by pure coincidence. And he was making light of it, saying that they might put it in the game, they're just thinking of a good name for it. So it shows that they're moving forward from this without trying to, like, bury it. This is something to commemorate this community effort and their stand against Sony. So a lot of people were pretty excited about that. I don't know if it's actually being added to the game or not. It sounds like it kind of is, but I guess we'll see. He made a quip about it costing $1,000 and then confirmed it'd be free. It was just a much lighter atmosphere once Sony took their foot off of their fucking face here and let the community breathe a sigh of relief. Now, a very pressing concern is, as I mentioned yesterday, the game was pulled from Steam in over 100 countries. Now, since Sony has reversed their decision, the game can realistically be re-added to those countries on Steam. But it's not something that's happening yet, at least not fully. I'm getting mixed reports. Some people are saying that it's been relisted in their regions, others are saying it hasn't in theirs. So I'm guessing it's just a process that takes quite a bit of time. It's probably not something that happens instantly. Probably can't flip a switch on and off to like relist and delist. You probably have to wait for Steam and Sony to work together to confirm all the details and iron it out before it gets re-added to those regions. But I imagine over the next few days it will. I don't think it'll stay delisted in those areas since they've backtracked. So I think it's just a matter of waiting for that to finalize, which is great. So that way all those regions can once again have no worries and have access to this fucking fantastic game. This was an entirely avoidable catastrophe here. And hopefully Sony has learned a lesson here. I imagine they haven't. That's my guess. I imagine they will still try something again in the future. I just don't know what. I can only hope that it's not nearly as stupid and detrimental as this decision was. But yeah, anyway, for now, it's good news, clear skies, wonderful stuff. That's really about it. So yeah. I've been actively following the Helldivers 2 situation over the last couple days, kind of just with my fingers crossed, hoping that Sony will change their mind about the awful decision that's tanking the game. But unfortunately, just like my height, it hasn't changed, and now it looks like it's probably too late anyway. Even if you started putting like a rabbit's foot up your butthole for some good luck, it looks like it won't matter, because in the words of a great man, this is democracy manifest. The game has been removed from 177 different regions from Steam. So this ship is already sailed here. For those that don't know what's going on, Helldivers 2 is one of the most successful games of 2024, a game that I was personally so excited by and happy with that I made a whole video dedicated to singing its praises and just gushing grannies over it about how rare it is for a game, especially a game like Helldivers 2, which is a live service game. And that title, live service, has a more negative connotation than the title Reddit mod. And yet Helldivers 2 went on to buck every dogshit trend that the gaming industry has been shoving down people's throats and found immense success. A massive, passionate community and a huge player base. It's an incredible game and they do everything right with it in terms of how they deliver new content. It's just so good. It was positioned to just be an extremely popular game that had a very strong community forever, as long as they kept up this momentum. And yet, a couple days ago, from out of nowhere, they were able to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, thanks to Sony, mainly. There was an announcement that all PC players that were playing Helldivers 2 through Steam would now need to link their Steam account to a PSN account in order to continue to have access to the game. Now, this isn't unusual, and a lot of people were quick to point out, like, gamers are just spoiled, they're making a big deal out of nothing, this is a mountain out of a molehill, what a bunch of fucking barnacles here, this is all horseradish, why are people making an issue out of it? And while they're right that it's easy to link an account and it's not unusual, it's more common than the cold. If you play a game on Steam, sometimes you'll be forced to link to like a Microsoft account or, God forbid, a Ubisoft account. Like, this does happen a lot, but what they're not understanding about this case in particular is when Helldivers 2 launched, you did not have to do that. Now, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty because there were statements on the official page where you should link a PSN account, but they made it optional. Like, you didn't have to, you weren't forced to, which led to plenty of people from a ton of different regions buying Helldivers 2 who do not have access to the PlayStation Network, thus they can't link their Steam account to a PSN account, meaning they won't be able to play this game going forward. And now we're reaching the point where we're at today where it's been removed from 177 different regions on Steam. So it's a massive fucking mess, and it is a headache. Like, there's no reason to tiptoe around this. No one likes having to link their account to other services. It just creates a lot more hoops to jump through. Yes, it's not a huge time investment, but it is a fucking nuisance. Especially Sony. Like, they're claiming that the reason behind this is for security. I mean, what a load of hooey. Security, Sony's infrastructure is like the least secure on the planet. I'd rather link my account to a known crypto scammer than link it to the Sony network. They get hacked every couple of years like clockwork. I wouldn't be surprised if hackers started holding their own E3 to make their upcoming announcements on the next Sony hack. It is so frequent. So it's not exactly the most secure place to hold your information. You're probably better off just writing down all your information on a piece of paper, folding it into a paper airplane, and throwing it out the window. It's probably safer that way. Like, it's a ridiculous claim. I think the reason that they want everyone to link their PSN account is because it looks a lot better on their bottom line earnings report when they, like, go through all of their player counts and whatever. I think that's probably the reason behind it. Of course, I'm not 100% sure why, but they seem to really be adamant about needing these accounts linked, which has completely ruined the reputation of Helldivers 2 because it's made everyone mad. So it's been review bombed to shit. That got straight banished to the Shadow Realm. It used to have mostly positive reviews, like literally one of the video game industry's darlings. Now it's got negative reviews thanks to this change, and a lot of people are going to lose access to the game that they paid for, which is a problem. Now there is refunds that are being offered, which a lot of people are taking, and it's just been a disaster for a game that is truly special. Helldivers 2 is such a good game, and it's now been completely tainted forever because of this decision from Sony. A fucking classic Sony L here. So let's dive into a bit more of the weeds. I actually think Ludwig did a great job covering the broad strokes of this, so I'm going to play a couple clips from his video.
To the defense of Helldivers 2, this was on their Steam page since their launch 3 months ago. This is actually my screenshot. It says right here, requires third-party account, PlayStation Network, supports linking to Steam account. However, they did not enforce it. And if you go to the FAQ on PlayStation's own website, they would say signing into PSN is optional when playing a PlayStation game on PC. They have since changed this FAQ when they made this update today, and that's why people are not happy. Here's another page where it says, do I need a PSN account to play PlayStation games on PC? No, you do not, currently. Now, they have changed this policy, and they're now saying you gotta do it with certain games, including Helldivers 2, which has millions and millions of players.
So as you can see, it was clearly posted that you would need a PlayStation account to play the game. However, it wasn't a rule that they were enforcing, and if you did any level of like digging on your own, you'd find that on their own official FAQs for Sony, they said that signing into it is optional. Thus, you would start to connect dots in your noodle like, oh, okay. So I downloaded Helldivers 2 on Steam. I'm not being forced to make a PSN account, thus this must be one of those games where it's optional to make one. I think I'll avoid doing that. I think I'll go ahead and press skip, which is something you can do or could do with Helldivers 2. So there'd be no reason for players to think that down the line they would change their stance on this. Like all of a sudden, hey, now you need to sign in here, Buster. You've been breaking the rules behind our back. Because they've made it clear that it is optional in cases. And it seemed like Helldivers 2 was one of those cases, which it was. But what they ended up saying is that there was a grace period. So like you could initially gain access to Helldivers 2 without a PSN account, but it was only for a temporary period of time to guinea pig it to get you hooked on it. And then you'd have to, get your comeuppance here by signing into PSN, which I think is extremely misleading if that really is the case. If that was the plan from the beginning, if they had always planned to just get a huge influx of players and then just fucking bait and switch them with the PSN requirement, I think that is like almost criminal. Because again, there are so many regions that had access to Steam that could download Helldivers 2 that cannot link with a PSN account, thus they're going to lose access to the game they paid for. That is fucked up. That is some super scummy shit if that really is the case, if that's what Sony's long-term plan was.
I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if this is just one of those things where they're like, okay, we need more juice in our PSN numbers. Let's go ahead and force the massive Helldivers community to link with us. It'll be great for our numbers here. Like, that's probably the most likely answer, but still, it is a problem. Like, it's not so much, again, the concept of needing to link an account from Steam to another service. That's been here prevalent for many, many years. It's the fact that so many people could do it without that step, and now they're retroactively adding that requirement, and that makes it impossible for a lot of players to play the game going forward. That is the main issue here. It's fucking stupid, and it is a decision that has completely ruined the reputation of Helldivers 2, and it makes me super sad to see that, because this is a great, great game that has now just been run through the mud here because of Sony's greed.
These are the current available countries where you can make a PlayStation account. There's a lot of users who play this game who cannot make a PlayStation account, thus cannot play the game legally. Now you might think, well, how about you just make up an account? But if you look at PlayStation's own rules, they say, well, hey, you have to make an account in the country that you reside in. That's the rule here. And if you don't, we may request identifying documents to prove that you were in that country. And if we suspect that you are not following our terms of service, we might remove or compromise your account. We might ban it altogether. You might lose access to be able to play the game that you paid for altogether. So basically, the only way for a lot of the user base to play the game is if they break the rules that Sony laid out, which is a little bit fucking dumb to me.
It's a little bit fucking dumb to everyone outside of the Sony stupid tank where they're in there just like actually huffing moron potions. It's crazy how they wouldn't see this as an issue. So, as Ludwig states, there is a list of every country that can have a PSN account, and there's a lot of places absent from that list that have access to Steam, have a lot of players for Helldivers 2, and will not be able to make this PSN account. The only way around it is to make a fraudulent PlayStation account, flub it a bit, which breaks Sony's rules, and you could lose your account because of that. So they have no options except to stop playing the game that they love. It's a problem, and it's an entirely avoidable one that didn't need to happen in the first place. Sony could have just continued to ride this cash cow into the sunset. Helldivers 2 is a smashing fucking success. It is a colossal achievement, and they have found a way to wipe their ass with it. And my heart absolutely breaks for the passionate team behind Helldivers 2. Now, initially when this stuff started happening, one of the community managers kind of made a fool of themselves. I'm not even going to bother showing the screenshot. I'm sure you all know what I'm referring to here. They put on the clown makeup for a second, but shortly after that, they all did start wiping it off when they realized the actual problem isn't the 120 seconds it takes to create a PSN account and link it to Steam. The problem is retroactively having to enforce that rule, which kicks out tons and tons of their players. And there are plenty of players who just do not want to make a PSN account because it's not a secure database. Like, I think that's also a totally fine perspective to have, because they do get hacked all the fucking time. So, like, they get hacked more than, like, a terminal in Fallout 3. So, like, I do get that perspective for people that just do not want to do it because they want to keep their data safe. Thus, they're just going to drop Helldivers because they don't want to deal with PSN. But the core of it, it's just the principle of Sony coming in here and ruining the fun. Changing something that didn't need to be changed in the first place. They could have just sat back, put their hands under their thighs, kicked their legs in their corpo high chairs, and just been like, you know, hey, we're happy Helldivers is bringing us so much money. Thanks for doing all the hard work while we just get a royalty on it. Like, it could have been so easy. It was so easy. And now they've made it really hard for themselves, and in the process, they have tanked an incredible game's reputation. But anyway, that's kind of the gist of this situation here. I don't think Sony's going to walk back these changes. I think it is too late for that since it's now been removed from Steam in so many places. I just don't see them changing their mind on it. And I think Helldivers is going to continue to kind of bleed out here as more and more people leave. And it just, I don't know, that sucks. It's such a good game, and it just didn't have to be this way, Sony. You killed it. You took it behind the barn and you put it down. Oh, it was so unnecessary. But anyway, just want to talk about it a bit. That's it. See ya. A class action lawsuit has been filed against PlayStation for nearly $6 billion by a consumer champion named Alex Neal. Now, I'm not Saul Goodman, but if I was, I'd start planting cocaine right now because this is a huge lawsuit that's going to need a miracle to win, I think. I'm not an expert here, but it does seem like this lawsuit's got teeth, and they're coming at Sony's throat. 6 billion clams, 6 billion barnacles. You know how much I love wackiness. I love wackiness more than Bubble Bass loves Krabby Patties, and this lawsuit's got me hyped. Now, this lawsuit is proudly brought to you by PlayStationYouOweUs.co.uk, which is a beautiful website name. Like, that's pretty aggressive. It reminds me of like a Roblox petition to get their V-Bucks back or something. But this was a site where people would sign up who felt wronged by Sony, and Alex Neil is the class representative. And on the site, there's a 5-point breakdown that talks about why they're trying to steam PlayStation's ham. So the first point being that Sony has a near monopoly on the sale of digital games and add-on content through its control of the PlayStation Store. Sony uses this dominance to enforce strict terms and conditions on game developers and publishers. These terms allow Sony to set the price of digital games and in-game content and charge a 30% commission on every purchase of digital games and in-game content from the PlayStation Store. This results in excessive and unfair prices to consumers for their digital games and in-game content. And these prices are all out of proportion to the costs of Sony providing these services to its consumers. So basically they're saying that Sony has used its dominant position in the market to unfairly overcharge consumers. Now, for reference, this was filed in the UK, and a brand new PS5 game in the UK will cost you about £70, which is the equivalent to $82. So I do think they're getting fucked in the ass a bit here. It's quite an overcharge if you ask me. And I'd love to see them win this lawsuit, you know, power to the players, as PlayStation says. But the more I read into it, the less confident I feel that they'll be able to Fortnite dance on the grave of Sony with this lawsuit. I don't really think they're going to get a big W from it. And let me just explain why I think that. I'd love to be proven wrong. Like I said, I think it would be great if they actually did win this lawsuit because I do believe they're being overcharged. But I don't think they have the strongest case here. Just looking at these first 5 points, the first one just stands out as factually incorrect. They're claiming that Sony has a near monopoly on the sale of digital games and add-on content, which is just blatantly wrong. I would slap you with a fat F on your report card if you submitted this to me. Like, that is just not true. There's Xbox, Nintendo, Steam, there's so many other digital games vendors out there, it's not just Sony. Now, if you're talking about PlayStation exclusives, then yes, Sony has a monopoly on the digital sale of the PlayStation exclusives. But if that is the claim, it needs to be a lot more clear because with the wording here, it just makes it sound like you think Sony is the only console to exist and the only platform for digital games, which it isn't. The other thing that was confusing my little reptile brain was that 30% commission they mentioned, talking about how the Sony demands 30% cut of digital game and in-game purchase sales from the developers. That's not exclusive to just Sony. Xbox, Nintendo eShop, pretty much every digital game vendor has some kind of commission that they force. It's not just Sony, so I don't understand why they would target them specifically, since it's the industry norm. But I decided to spread the cheeks a little further, dig a bit deeper, and listen to what the UK consumers were saying. And it seems to be that in the competitors' shops, like the Nintendo eShop, for example, they adjust their prices so that way the conversion makes sense and they're not being overcharged. Like a new Nintendo Switch game is £50, which when converted to like US dollars is about what we're paying in the States. However, when it comes to the PlayStation Store, that's not the case. So a new PlayStation 5 game in the States is $70, and in the UK, it's £70. However, that converts to a lot more. That's 82 US dollars. They are just blatantly paying more. Instead of adjusting that price down to like £60 or whatever, they just keep it at that 70 and thus they're being overcharged. At least that's what I was reading from the UK consumers, which again, at the end of the day, it's blatantly obvious that they are paying a lot more for games than we are in the States. And I totally do agree that it is a ripoff. And Alex Neil, the class representative, has 14 years of experience as a consumer rights advocate. So it's not some joke of a lawsuit that was haphazardly thrown together by a faceless nobody. This isn't like that situation on Twitch where that guy tried to sue Twitch for like $100 million because he couldn't stop watching female streamers and ejaculating and he tried to blame Twitch for a porn addiction. This isn't that case. This is a real legitimate case that Alex Neil has put together. but I just don't know if it's focused enough to actually win. It seems way too generalized and broad, and you can look no further than their own website, where at the very end of these 5 points, they made this statement that just seems a bit misguided to me. This just seems like another desperate effort to throw something at the wall and see what sticks. The business model of gaming has changed dramatically over recent years. The move from games sold as physical discs to games sold digitally has seen the introduction of in-game content, where players must now also pay to progress, unlock more features, or customize their experience with new characters or weapons. Games are now designed to incentivize players to spend as much money as possible, including children. We believe that customers are paying too much for these digital products and that they deserve to be treated better by Sony and compensated. Our legal action is the first of its kind against Sony in the UK. Now, I am never a fan of the think of the children argument. I don't see why they put this here at all, because this doesn't even really run in line with what the lawsuit's aiming for. This is talking about how predatory microtransactions have become the norm, which they have, and it's a huge issue. But that's not what this lawsuit's really about. It's about being overcharged by the PlayStation Store. Talking about predatory and greedy marketing practices from these games that are preying on children, or like fucking massive dopamine hits, dopamine fiends to spend more money, is an issue, yes, but it's not the issue that you're really aiming at here. You're not putting that in the crosshairs. And it's also not like Sony is the puppet master forcing all these developers to be greedy and put these microtransactions in the game. Like, let's say Diablo Immortal's on PS5. Sony has no say-so in what way they monetize that game. It's on their platform, sure, but it was Blizzard that decided to put all of those terrible, terrible microtransactions in there that are preying on, you know, people with a spending problem or children or whatever, not Sony. Now, if the argument Sony keeps those prices too high, then yes, I suppose there's a real argument to be made there that the price is still too high. But the way this is framed makes it sound like it was Sony that decided to put all of those there when it wasn't. It wasn't their decision to have all of those predatory business practices baked into those games. That was the developers. I just don't really get why it's mentioned here. Because let's say Sony brings the price down so that way it's more fair across the board, where, you know, if you're buying a microtransaction in a game in the UK, it costs exactly the same as what it costs me to buy it in the States. It still doesn't solve the core issue that you're bringing up here with the games being predatory, right? Like, this whole paragraph here is like almost like fear-mongering. Like, games have become really greedy, and it's partly Sony's fault to some degree, which is why we believe you need to be compensated fairly, and we believe you need to be treated better. Like, what exactly do you mean? Again, getting the price down on microtransactions doesn't solve the problem you just highlighted of them being greedy and intrusive. That's still going to exist. Even if you win every single bit of this case, those microtransactions are still going to be there from the developers because it wasn't Sony that put them there. And just one last thing, in the press release, Neil wrote, "The game is up for Sony PlayStation. With this legal action, I am standing up for the millions of UK people who have been unwittingly overcharged. We believe Sony has abused its position and ripped off its customers." Alex Neil hits us with an anime protagonist line saying, "The game's up, Sony. I caught you with your pants down, red-handed. It's time to face the music." And then in the press release, they also kind of frame it like the consumers didn't know they were being overcharged. But I just don't know how true that is. They kind of hint that it's Sony's fault that the consumers didn't know they were being overcharged. Like Sony was doing underhanded business tactics, when I just don't know if I believe that, because Sony doesn't really do anything besides just have a platform with a game and the price next to it. And you choose whether or not to buy it. Now, if you're not comparing that to the rest of the world's prices, then yeah, you would have no idea you're paying more than I am, for example. But it's not like it was Sony that was doing anything to mislead them, at least not that I've ever seen. They just put the games on their service with how much they cost, and it's up to the consumer if they find it to be a reasonable price or not. Now, if they do any research, they'll realize that they're paying more, and Australia especially is paying more than I am. Which is fucked up because there's no reason for it, but I don't think Sony has done anything to try and lead them down some false belief or anything. I think it's just a matter of they've been charging more and no one's really been questioning it, so they haven't changed it. And that's it. They haven't really been doing any kind of like propaganda to try and fool people into thinking that, you know, everyone's paying the same thing. And now that people are waking up to them being exploited, I think it's great that they're, you know, upset about it, because I don't think it's right. I don't think they should be paying more for no reason for the same game. It doesn't make any sense. but I just don't really like the way they talk about it in the press release, because they're putting that onus on Sony, that it was, them keeping people in the dark, when it wasn't. They just put the games up and that was it. But anyway, overall, I really do hope they win this class action lawsuit, and hopefully the prices do change, because like I said, it's a whole bunch of baloney that you're paying significantly more money for the same game in the UK, Australia, wherever else. It doesn't make any sense. There's no reason for that. So hopefully this does bring about positive change, and wishing them the best of luck. I just wanted to bring this up because this is a big lawsuit. That's about it. See ya.